The Breakfast Club is a well-established outlet for our community, an outlet that's popular amongst many, that has given people, no matter the reason, an opportunity to go on their platform and speak their piece, promote their books, tours, albums, campaigns, movements, businesses, ideologies, etc. From music artists, comedians, actors, film directors, film producers, to athletes, team owners, mental health advocates, financial advisors, modern day freedom fighters, to even people they've had issues with in the past. I'd say 99% of the guests who have appeared on The Breakfast Club have been made to feel welcomed. This platform has provided viral moment after viral moment, which is important to mention because these moments keep it relevant in the eyes of the younger viewers. Drake, are we finished or are we done? This platform has introduced us to some of the more now recognizable names, like the King Kong of Consciousness, Dr. Umar Johnson, giving us some of the rarest interviews, like Jay-Z and Nas, some interviews that were must-see TV, and some interviews that allowed us to see people we knew as one thing to be seen in a greater light, like Nipsey Hussle. The Nipsey I knew of before that interview was Bullets Ain't Got No Name, Volume 3 Nipsey. We gang bangin', we gang bangin'. That Nip didn't move me. After that interview, I was able to see how bright, how rare, how different, how special that man was. That brought me back to his music. I was able to enjoy listening to Victory Lap. When that man passed, I felt the sorrow that I had only felt twice before about a stranger. When Pac died in '96, and when the George Zimmerman verdict was read. This is all because of that interview. Interview on The Breakfast Club. Charlemagne the God, DJ Envy, Angela Yee, asking questions and allowing people to express themselves freely through their answers. Through a microphone that reaches the many in our community, young and old, city and country folk, those that's broke than a joke, and those that's big ballin' with the homies, domestic and international. I really wish The Breakfast Club would have allowed Larry Elder to speak. Instead of allowing him to lay out his concerns, what he finds important as he begins his bid for the presidency, and following that up with questions of how he plans on addressing those concerns and accomplishing those goals, I witnessed a 71-year-old, well-established black man be met with combativeness and hostility, simply because he has a difference in opinion, a different way of viewing issues. There are brothers and sisters who feel the same way on many of those issues. People who are just as bothered, just as concerned, and just as dialed in on finding solutions. Our people need to understand that we are not one size fits all. We have different interests, different levels of intellect, different desires out of life, and different ways that we approach doing things. That's why their platform is so important and, dare I say, invaluable, because they allow the different types of people on and lead the different discussions without losing their core audience. The 15-year-old girl who tuned in to Jocelyn Hernandez can tune in a week later and catch the interview with the women promoting Curlfest. The 17-year-old young man who tuned in to catch the 85 South interview can tune in days later and catch Earn Your Leisure. Not every platform can do that. When I get on this camera and I talk about Black issues, then talk about parenting, then talk about relationships, then give you motivational content, that stunts the growth of my channel. Takes my channel completely out the algorithm, and I don't care how good a message is. If no one hears it, there was no point. That brother Larry Elder got on their platform and spoke on issues that he acknowledged. People on his side, meaning right-wing conservative Republicans, do not speak enough on, if at all. Things that disproportionately affect our community. Again, I really wish they would have given Larry Elder the same opportunity they have given everyone else. And at the beginning, when it was just him and Charlemagne speaking, it seemed as if that was going to be the case. He spoke of fatherless homes in our communities. Not to be confused with the lack of fathers in our communities. Not saying brothers aren't taking care of their kids or that we're absent, but saying there's far too many children in our communities that are not going home to a complete family unit. And as a result, they are not reaping the benefits that come with living in that type of environment. When asked why this was, he gave an answer that substantiated his argument in LBJ's War Against Poverty. gave stats on the adverse effects they may face by not having this family unit. But instead of following up with, what would President Larry Elder do to change or reverse these situations? What type of government incentives would he give at the federal level to help bring families back together? Charlemagne inexplicably asked, what do white people do? If you're a regular viewer of this channel, you already know how I feel about this. And Larry Elder responded to that question exactly how I would have. Because I believe that if we're to solve any issues in our community, it is going to start and end with us. Larry Elder even tried to bring it back by mentioning the smash and grab incidents that have happened in California as an example of the type of conduct that he would have been afraid to be involved in as an adolescent, because he would have been afraid to face his father. But feelings kept the conversation from going any further. And then Teslin Figueroa jumped in and everything went completely left. Instead of getting to a possible solution about this issue and the issues that will follow, we got a left field argument about systemic racism. And I'll give my opinions on systemic racism in a different video. But our communities missed out on the opportunity to hear a real conversation that needed to be had and heard because of feelings. Larry Elder even brought this up when Charlemagne again asked, what do white people do wrong? And Larry stated how, instead of having a conversation about the pathology of the inner cities, black areas, they want to talk about how bad white people are, which he then stated isn't a productive conversation. Remember when I said the same way they pass down racism, we pass down the victim mentality? When DJ Envy finally decided to join the conversation 15 minutes in, that's what he brought. I don't think he brought anything productive to the conversation at all. He talked about the poor school conditions in our neighborhoods, in which Larry Elder agreed to and pointed to as the reason he supports school choice. He talked about how black people are treated unfairly when pursuing home and business loans, in which Larry Elder debunked by quoting a study that he read, and then which DJ Envy went and pulled up a Washington Post article saying that black people were denied with the same credit score. As if credit score is the only factor when it comes to buying a home. And then oddly, he spoke of fast food restaurants in our communities being a result of systemic racism. It's been a long time since I've sat in a government class, but I don't ever remember the US government dictating what corner a Taco Bell sits on. I know your local government will zone residential, commercial, industrial, recreational, and there may be a few other specialty zones, but there ain't no Taco Bell zone. That's an individual. We live in a capitalistic society. Someone who capitalizes on many things, like a DJ Envy, should understand this. But it seems like the conversation could never get back on track because it was interrupted again and again by Teslin Figueroa. In her feelings again and again, arguing semantics again and again, and being wrong every time. To say this was an embarrassing outing for the Breakfast Club would be an understatement. You would have thought the Breakfast Club, and Teslin specifically, would have learned from the interview with Vivek Ramaswamy. I guess the L she took that day didn't affect her at all. Didn't faze her. She went home, licked her wounds, and came back to battle with the same butter knife. And since she loves semantics, I have to say, Teslin, you lied when you told Vivek that you were being as respectful as you possibly could. Because between the Vivek Ramaswamy and Larry Elder interviews, the Breakfast Club interviewed another presidential candidate. Dr. Cornel West, a 70-year-old, well-established, and very intellectual black man, was allowed to speak. He wasn't interrupted at all. He wasn't grilled on any issue. He spoke for his reasoning for running for president as being truth and justice. He stated mass incarceration, decrepit schools and housing, unemployment and underemployment, and the way that black people are still subjugated as the issues that are important to him. He stated, and I'm paraphrasing, that if anyone has a problem with him running for president, then they should lead a campaign on eliminating mass incarceration, abolishing poverty, abolishing homelessness, and gaining a living wage for the workers. Talking that talk. We got a whole lot of gospel, whole lot of feel good, whole lot of talk about love and Black pride, and this great black musician and that great black musician. A whole lot of the things that we like to hear because it make us feel all good and fuzzy inside. Zero policy. Zero ideas of how to combat any issues that he brought before us. Zero questions or answers of how he would alleviate any of the issues that we as African Americans face daily. Zero. But he let us know he was on our side. Stated that they would have to put him in the grave before he sold out black folk. When asked by DJ Envy, if you do win, what would that do for our community, you think? He responded, and this is verbatim, I'm not going to the White House until everyone has a house. It's what he called spiritual servant leadership. He continues, verbatim, then we're going to talk about abolition. We're going to bring back troops, 800 military units around the world. America doesn't have to be an empire forcing every nation to succumb to its domination. America will be a nation among nations. We spend 57 cents for every dollar on the military. We can be using that to wipe out poverty. We can be using that for jobs with a living wage. We can be using that for Medicare for all and so forth. So it's going to be a new day in that sense. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but was anything in that answer specific to black people? He stated things that aren't even a possibility. He later stated, verbatim, there's no way in God's heaven that a person who came down from Mars and looked at the conditions of black people could conclude that anybody who's been ruling has been concerned about black people, made it a priority. See, we have black people, including Dr. Cornel West, who spoke down on Obama's presidency because he, quote, didn't do enough for black people, unquote. And Dr. West, when asked that question regarding our community, or otherwise throughout the interview, did not offer a single solution to any problem that disproportionately affects our communities. Just a whole bunch of Saturday morning cartoons with a big bowl of cereal wrapped in a blanket. Whole bunch of feel good. Uninterrupted. Now see, as much as I respect Dr. Cornel West for what should be obvious reasons, I take exception to that. Because if you take what he wants to do and place it next to reality, you'll understand that it's not even a possibility. Did we not learn what happens when Congress doesn't fuck with the president during Obama's time in office? So the same Congress that won't forgive their high interest student loans is the same Congress that's going to buy a bunch of homes and just give them away, because that will be the only way everyone gets a home. Imagine members of Congress voting to abandon military bases that we've established worldwide. Not only is it not a possibility, but the best that we could even hope for in both regards would land us back in the same position we were in 2016, the end of Obama's tenure. Obama implemented cuts in the military's budget and brought a bunch of troops home from conflict. In fact, there were 177,000 U.S. troops in Afghanistan and Iraq when Obama took over office in January of 2009. He reduced that number by 30,000 troops the very next year. And when he left office in January of 2017, there were 13,800 troops in those countries. Homes were still affordable back then too. According to two different websites that I looked at, one being FedPrimeRate.com, the average price of a home is $156,000 more than it was in January 2017 when Obama left office. Statista.com, though showing yearly averages, reports the same increase from 2017 to what's been reported right now in 2023. We all know the U.S. government cannot guarantee Social Security for those that have paid into it, so we certainly can't provide Medicare for all. However, I'm going to stop there because this is not about Dr. Cornel West. This is about the Breakfast Club's flagrant disregard for fairness, the same fairness that Teslin Figaro claims Larry Elder didn't show. Why was Dr. Cornel West not pressed on the issues the same as Larry Elder, Vivek Ramaswamy, Cory Booker, or any other politician that has come on that platform over the years? How did a man lay out several different concerns as his reasoning for running for office, and out of three separate people, no one asked any questions to get any of the possible solutions to those issues? No one wanted to hear a strategy or game plan on how these things can be accomplished? I wanted to know what he would do about mass incarceration, or what he would do on the federal level about these decrepit schools. I was interested in his solution for better housing and how he would tackle underemployment. Why was this man not asked those important questions? I mean, it certainly has nothing to do with the respect they were showing to him for his age, because Larry Elder is a year older. It obviously had nothing to do with race, and it clearly had nothing to do with political agendas because they seem to not be concerned about that. It's simply because he made them feel good. He got on a platform and ran with systemic racism and tugged on their proverbial victim strings and made sure they knew that someone else was responsible for all of the issues they struggle with in life. And that was good enough. And again, I'll do a separate video on how I feel about systemic racism because I do not want to convolute the point that I'm trying to make here. During this interview, Dr. Cornel West spoke many times of there being too many scared Black people in America. We know I agree with that. I believe if you've watched the interview, you witnessed it in real time. When speaking of Kamala Harris, he spoke of having the courage to tell the truth and break the back of fear. He spoke the phrase, tell the truth, frequently. So let's do that. Dr. Cornel West, though an intelligent and passionate speaker, and one whose love for Black people in America is undeniable, is a great spokesperson for us and our issues. But from what we saw in this interview, one has no choice but to come to the conclusion that he is not a great presidential candidate, whether your feelings want to admit it or not. He had an uninterrupted hour-long interview in which he did not lay out a plan that would lead me to believe that he does not have one. Larry Elder, on the other hand, who isn't scared, spoke the truth. He didn't change his talking points because he was now on the Black platform. Didn't change it at all. To go on a platform that, judging by the Vivek Ramaswamy interview, he knew would press him hard and still argue his points without apology, and also rebut Charlemagne on the nigga wake-up call, showed that he has the courage to go stand in front of Congress, other world leaders, and in front of the media to fight for the issues that he feels is important to this country, including the issues that disproportionately affects our community. What Larry Elder did speaks directly to the type of person that Dr. Cornel West said we needed. I know it's way too early to, be sending in your vote, but he should have at least earned some consideration. And lastly, to the members of the Breakfast Club, if you don't have the courage to ask the candidates that you're fond of the same tough questions that you ask the candidates that you're not fond of, don't ask questions to anyone. Allow them to come on, speak as freely as you do your non-political guests, or don't allow them on at all. The platform you have built is too important to our people, has too much influence, and means too much to the culture to have the ball dropped in these moments. I really enjoy tuning in, and I'm not suggesting that people stop, but we need better from all involved. Black people, we are in too critical of a time to still be out here falling for the okie doke. We have Black children whose future in this country depends on the adults of today making the tough but right decisions. The world we knew as kids does not exist. The world my kids knew is fading out, and the country their kids will inherit is trending in the wrong direction. That is a statement that is true to all that hear it. Every single Black person in this country, if honest, would acknowledge that our communities are in a state of despair. This train is off the rails. The only drama left to figure out is whether or not it'll come to a complete stop in an upright position or tip over in a mangled mess. Honestly, neither of these brothers have a great chance at winning this election, but they do have a chance. Donald Trump and most of the country did not believe he was going to win the presidential election when he started campaigning, but he threw his hat in the ring and that gave him a chance. We know the rest. Y'all have a good start to y'all week.